Today on Inspired Money.
I'm very free spirit, and to be honest, personally, I didn't really budget my money that well. But for now, when I started having a company, that totally changed me and changed my mindset. And I'm very careful about what kind of money I'm spending, especially on marketing, sales, and manufacturing. So that was a lot of hustle. Yeah, but I think it's if you ask for help, and people actually are really nice and willing to help you.
This is episode 105 with founder of Us2T, Maggie Ranmu Xue. Welcome to Inspired Money. My name is Andy Wong, a managing partner at Runnymede Capital Management. Each week, we bring you an interesting person to help you get inspired, shift your perspectives on money, and achieve incredible things. From making it to giving it away, Inspired Money means making a difference, creating something bigger than oneself, and maybe, just maybe, making the world a better place. Thank you for joining me. Hey, Inspired Moneymaker, welcome back. If it's your first time listening, welcome. In our goal to live a richer life, make a greater impact, and make the world a better place, today we're talking to a 28-year-old entrepreneur and founder of Us2T, Ranmu Xue. You might also see her by her English name, Maggie. I'll pat myself on the back on this one for pronouncing her name close enough to correctly that she said that I could call her by her Chinese name. Between us, my Mandarin is really terrible. I met up with Ranmu in the Lower East Village of Manhattan and found her to be a very thoughtful and self-aware young entrepreneur. She feels a responsibility to change the perception of Chinese-made products for her generation. No small feat. In this episode, you'll learn, whether you're building a company or not, the importance of having a role model. You'll learn a little bit about high-quality Asian teas, specifically tea from the island of Taiwan, how to identify a gap, launch a company, and build a brand. And then as a bonus, because Ranmu grew up in Shanghai but now lives in the U.S., insight into the Chinese perspectives of money, education, and mindset. Now let's get inspired with Ranmu Xue. Ranmu, welcome to Inspired Money. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Let's jump right in. What's your earliest childhood memory of money?
It's very interesting. So I remember when I was 10 years old, I think it was elementary school. I wanted this new school bag, and I didn't know the concept of money because everything was given to me. And I asked my mom for it, and my mom was like, if you want, I think it cost around $3 back then. It was 20 yuan in China.
And this was in Shanghai?
Yeah, in Shanghai, 20 years ago. So, it was really cheap, but for me, because I didn't have any money, so I had to ask for my parents. And my mom was like, if you I want the bag, you have to work for it. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, oh yeah, if you want the money, you can clean our house or clean your room, and I will pay you by hourly. And that was the first time that I noticed that you have to actually work for money because everything was given to me. So from then until now, I mean, that's how I make money. Even when I was in school, I just teach other kids and go out to do some summer jobs. It's kind of like American education. They send the kids out, and then most of the Chinese parents, they just gave you money straight up. But for my parents, it's very different because my mom is more westernized as well. I think she went to the United States in the 90s. So she had a tour around the elementary schools and middle school, and she see the difference between how people educate kids. So she was trying to teach me how to make money very, very early stage.
Yeah, it sounds like it made an impression.
Yeah.
You think the mindset is very different if you are in China growing up 20 years ago versus your mom who had a little bit of a Western perspective?
Definitely very, very, very different because growing up in a traditional Chinese culture, for example, if your parents are rich or like middle upper class in mainland China, the kids are kind of given for like everything. So they tend to take money or, like the things they have for granted. They didn't know the concept of like, you have to work hard for it. So it was just because China was really poor before, and my family, like my mom's generation, was the first generation kind of like, after 1997 and the trade war started, like, and then they opened the door to the Western culture. So my parents was the first generation to do business, and it's just like very fascinating for me because my mom is a businessman as well.
So is she a role model for you as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So my mom's dad, like, or my mom's family didn't have any money. So she started from the ground, like has no help. And it was like 20 years ago. And she was a woman back then in China doing business, dealing with men. And it was a lot of challenging part for her, like a challenging time for her as well. So I watched her grow from nothing to, I think she was a millionaire and to make it where she is right now. So that's definitely helped me to do and running my own business as well.
Wow, that's a rags to riches story.
Yeah.
What is her business?
So she started off doing medicine, like selling medicines to like hospitals and stuff, like trade. And then later on, she started invest in real estate in Shanghai. And it was such a smart decision because back like 10 years ago, even, I like witnessed her like buying this house, in Pudong area. And it was around like 200K for like 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. And she sold it after 5 years. So she made literally like 8 times more.
Wow.
Than original. Yeah. You know how like Asian people love to invest in real estate, and that was like a good time, especially the economy was booming back then.
Wow. So she started a business, but she invested her money as well.
Yeah, she is really smart because she likes to, she does like stock exchange and all that stuff. So she's very interested in investment. She doesn't believe in just putting your money in the bank. And she always trying to find new projects to invest. And right now she's also like, kind of like an angel investor. She invested a lot of startup in China as well. And, who specialize in health and wellness. So it's like a very interesting mindset. And me watching her journey is like very inspiring for me.
I can imagine. Gives you big dreams, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to do similar things.
Yeah. Actually, when I grow up, I didn't want to have my own business because I see how much she struggled and I see how hard it is. I was like, I just want to become a designer. I want to do what I love. And as long as I can pay my bill, I'm good. And I think the mentality kind of changed or shift in the past few years when I started working at my previous startup. And I just really fascinated about the product and I really love it. And I feel like, it's time for me to do something too. And that's how I started.
So you studied art and design in school.
Yeah.
Was there any pressure from your family, like that area of study?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because normally most Asian parents will be like so against
right.
it.
Don't be an artist.
Yeah. Literally like you have to be a lawyer or like study finance or, accounting, something like more stable.
Right.
My mom, like I mentioned, like she's like a free spirit and she actually want me to become an artist, like a pure painter. And her originally plan was like to send me to France to study fine art. And I'm the one who said no because I told her like, I have to make money. I can't live off your money or forever. I need to, this is like not about you. This is about my life. And I need to have that fulfillment from the inside and I'm not going to be happy. So I told her maybe I can do something in between, like, is part of art, part of like technology. So that's why I chose design, like become a graphic designer. I can still do some of the art part, but also helping companies to build their brand and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, the fulfillment, it goes back to your mom giving you the lesson that you had to clean your room for money. Because if she had just given it to you, you might have been fine with, okay, I'm going to go off to Paris and become a painter or expert in the arts and not have pressure on yourself to achieve things on your own.
Yeah, exactly. Because I earned that, and it's very different than someone giving it to you. And it's also like a sense of like security as well from the inside. And I have a lot of friends who are like the second generation, like their family they're coming from like a really wealthy family, and the parents was just like kind of like spoiled them, quote unquote, and just gave them everything, but they were just not happy at all, and some of them got depressions, and it's just I saw that. So I was telling myself like I never want to be part of like that, like, circle, or even like just part of that life. I also have a lot of friends who they grew up in Hong Kong, and they're also from like wealthy family, but they were never taking anything for granted. They work so hard, and you don't know, because I think it really depends on the family and how their value is and how to educate them. So it's also like going back to, like 20 years ago, like, the first generation got rich and they didn't have the time to really evaluate their life value. So I think that's also associated with how they educate their kids. So I think I'm very lucky on that end that my mom, she actually is very open-minded, and she knows what is important for a person. And the value that I have is kind of like aligned with her value. So I'm really thankful for that.
It's interesting that you observed it's not just having money that brings happiness, that there are people who have a lot of money and they're depressed or they're not fulfilled. Do you think that drive that you have, is that something that you're born with, or is it environment, or both?
I think environment is 70%. I think it's also coming from my personal experience, because when I grew up, my parents was divorced when I was like 7 years old. So I grew up with my grandma, and my mom, she is a businessman, so she was never around. And she, in her mind, she want to create this like, the best environment for me to go to the best school, to live in the best neighborhood in China, and to live in the best house that we could.
So that's why she had to go to work.
Yeah. And she's like, she want to provide for me. But like there's something missing in my childhood because my parents was never around, and I feel so lonely. And that was the first time that I felt like money can buy you happiness, because I was alone, the one child policy in China. So I was alone, and I had my grandma, but I didn't have anyone else. So that was like the first time I realized that happiness doesn't equals money. And even you live in the best neighborhood, you live in the best house, it doesn't mean anything.
So you were really driven. That's how you ended up taking your design background to a tech startup, really, right?
Yeah. So it's very interesting. I studied design, and when I found the tech startup, I fall in love with the product because it's a combination of art and technology. It's called Meural. So it's like a digital canvas.
I haven't seen it in person, but it looks really cool.
Yeah, they have one in beta store. They have like show fields too. And their office is actually around the corner on Broadway.
So instead of having a framed painting on your wall, it's the size of a big frame.
Yeah, it's the size of a real painting, but imagine bringing the Met Museum to your home. So basically you can access to tens of thousands of artwork from the Renaissance to like modern art to street art. And we actually collaborate with a lot of local artists and galleries to show off their works. And it's like subscription based, but the quality is so real, and you can see the brush strokes and the lighting and everything. So it's very like fascinating. And I was a painter before. So when I saw that product, I was like, oh my God, this is like my dream job. So, I joined them and helping them rebuild their brand. Essentially, I'm actually doing the same thing because right now I'm also creating a brand. So the core value is the same as a designer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your contributions to this company, because ultimately it was acquired.
Yeah, we got acquired for $22 million last summer by NETGEAR, and they're our Series A investors. And I think it was just like a good timing. I mean, it's not just me because it was like the whole team because everyone loved it so much. So it didn't really feel like working. I was just like so passionate about the product.
Was it super high paced because it's a startup? I think you were there. It was probably about 2 years old.
Yeah.
And you were there a couple of years.
So I think they founded like 4 years ago, and the two co-founders, Vlad and Jerry, they're super, super good people. And I really believe in them. I think the whole team believed in them. So we're like a family, and I joined them 2 years ago, and I was their first, designer. So kind of like the lead designer to help them rebrand, their product and, the interface, the mobile app, the website. And it was just, I think it was the whole team's effort, but for me, my part was the design, and it's very important for startups to have their personal voice, and the branding is very important because you are actually trying to build this connection between your company and the customers, and it's the trust that you're building. So, especially right now, all those like startups, they have like very distinctive like branding. That's how you can stand out from the market. And I think my job there was like trying to help them build this brand, rebranding. And that kind of initially was part of the reason that why we got acquired.
From the customer's perspective, what did that rebrand look like? What changes were made?
I think they can find a common like sense that they feel connected with our new branding, and it was more modern. And I think for a company's perspective, we also, because our logo is kind of like a color palette, a fine art color palette, but with like, the M inside. So it means like, it's like a digital format. So it's kind of like a dream abstract concept for people. So each one see it differently. If you look at the symbol, if you ask people, 50 people are going to give you 50 different answers. And I think that's the beauty of art. But that's also what we're representing, because we're actually eventually one digital frame that can combine all of those like art paintings in one wall. So I think it's really important to just build that emotional connection with people, is like what our mission is and the core value is. I think, yeah. And we're targeting also not only millennials, but more like, people who have like houses, more like mature millennials. So it's just, interesting. And I think also the color purple, which is our branding's like main color, is a combination of red and blue. So red represents like fine art in the art design world, and the blue represents art. So if you do painting and if you mix those two colors together, it becomes purple. So that's what we are as well. So if you look at our website, that's like the color that we are trying to convey and to represent our core value.
It sounds like you really valued your experience there. You valued the team, and you learned a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Once it was acquired, what was your thought process for making a change?
So to be honest, if we weren't acquired, I will still be there. So I feel like when I know that like we were getting acquired, my initial thoughts was like, oh, my job here is done, because when I joined them, I really want to help them build a brand, and it takes 5 to 10, like 20 years to build a good brand. And I think initially my job is down there, and I can start something on my own to build my own brand. And that's how I just decided to leave the job and leave the team and start something on my own.
Coming up, we talk about why Ranmu decided to launch a tea business, high-quality tea from Taiwan, how to build a brand, and more. That's coming right up after this short break. The show notes for this episode can be found at inspiredmoney.fm/105. If you're listening in your car or wherever you are, check the show notes if you want to learn more about Ranmu or things mentioned in this episode. It's time for the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. Today, Ranmu has talked about the importance of having role models and not being afraid to ask for help. This isn't surprising because so many Inspired Money guests have talked about the benefits of having mentors and mastermind groups. Mastermind groups were introduced by Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich. Hill defines the principle as coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between two or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose. A mastermind group can be a great way to collaborate, grow your network, and even cross-promote your products or services. Masterminds can vary in size, anywhere from 2 to 50 plus people. I suggest that you start small, though, creating a team of 4 to 6 people, because with a small group, you have more time to focus on individual issues, and you can meet and discuss things more frequently. Try to find people with a similar experience level, similar ambitions and desires for achievement, similar values, beliefs, and ethics. Establish your meeting frequency and format, because consistency matters. I'm told that once a week is best, or every 2 weeks works well. As far as format, that can vary really widely. Here's an example. You can open with a short update on the previous week or since the last meeting. And then there's the hot seat, where one member poses critical questions and solicits feedback from the other team members. And then you can close with everyone stating the goals for the coming week or next meeting period. Give it a try and let me know how you make out. So many guests have shared that mastermind groups have helped them grow their businesses and increase their impact exponentially. That's the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. Inspired Money is brought to you by Runnymede Capital Management. We help you to plan, invest, and worry less. What's your biggest financial challenge right now? Do you have a money question? If you need help, go to inspiredmoney.fm/Andy, that's ANDY, to email me or schedule a 15-minute call at inspiredmoney.fm/15. We can talk about anything. I'd love to chat with you. You're listening to Inspired Money. I'm Andy Wong. You decided to go do something that is really low tech. What was the moment? Like, was there a thought process where you were thinking, what kind of business can I start? Or what process did you go through before you said to yourself, us 2T, like that's what it's going to be?
Yeah. So that's a really good question, because I'm a tea drinker. I drink tea when I was in Shanghai, and I drink tea when I'm here. So I noticed that like over the years, in the past 10 years, all my American friends keep asking me to bring tea to them from like every time I go back to China, I ask them, what do you want? And they're like, oh, can you please bring me some tea? Where you can go
see a tea master.
Yeah. And they're like, okay, do you know where I can get like good quality tea in like US? I was like, I really don't know. I'm not sure. Like maybe Chinatown, but you have to find the good stores. And most of them are selling loose leaf tea. And I figured that, that's like a problem that like right now, like especially in New York and LA, like California, people are more health conscious and they're drinking less coffee and more tea, but they don't really know where to find the good Asian tea. And that's a problem for me too, because literally I can't find any. I mean, either some of them are really overpriced and some of them are just not very user friendly. And I just don't have the time to sit down, in New York and to do that whole Kung Fu tea thing. It's going to cost you like at least half an hour. So I kind of like brainstormed. I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to importing tea from China or Taiwan and bring that tea here to the people here so we can enjoy it together. And it's part of our culture. And I feel like as a designer, like it's going back to your question, like most of the Asian parents have this like biased opinion about like people doing art or, less paid jobs. And I think right now the generation is changing. Our mentality is changing. I want to inspire other people and to tell them that, you know what, if you decide to go with graphic design jobs, you can build your own brand. It's just, it doesn't have to be like a high paid like banker or working at like a law firm. And as long as you are happy and pursue your passion, I mean, the money will follow. That's my value. I just think like I love what I do. And I think if you're really trying to build something that's useful and inspiring to people, and they will get it eventually and people will follow you.
You are very young. You're in your late 20s.
Yeah.
And you mentioned to me that you don't have a finance background. You have a design background. Tell us some of the things that you learned in bootstrapping this business.
Yeah, it was super, super challenging for me because as a founder, you have to manage money. And that was one of the part that I'm not good at it, and especially budgeting and also just financing and like look at, bookkeepings and everything. So I have to learn everything from the ground. Being a designer, the only job you need to vary is design, but being a founder, the number one thing you need to worry about is money. And if you're making a profit, because for a company that's like initially you have to survive in order to do other things. So for me, it's not only the money part, but also like talking to manufacturers in China and sourcing in Taiwan, and all the costs is added up. And I was really be careful, like trying to putting my budget and time to put it on the things that's more valuable for me at this stage of the company. And I had to ask a lot of mentors and people around me who are good at that to help me. And, my mom also taught me about how to budget for your company. I suspect
she's good with numbers.
Yeah, she's very good. So I'm very free spirit. And to be honest, personally, I didn't really budget my money that well. But for now, when I started having a company, that totally changed me and changed my mindset. And I'm very careful about what kind of money I'm spending, especially on marketing, sales, and manufacturing. So that was a lot of hustle. Yeah. But I think it's if you ask for help, and people actually are really nice and willing to help you.
So tell us a little bit about the exploration that you did to find the teas and your initial products that you launched with.
Yeah, so we have 4 kinds of tea initially. So we have the black tea, oolong, and baozhong and jasmine. I went to Taiwan for branding research. And when I was there, it was last summer as well, around this time. And I tried their iced black tea in one of the vendors. And I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing, because it tastes very sweet, but it's really refreshing. There's no refined or artificial sugar in there. It was just pure tea. And I was like, the product is so good. Why don't I just import tea from Taiwan? And that's how I started. So I literally rent a car from the airport and then drove to Nantou County and Ali Mountain. So that's where all the tea farmers are. And I literally went to I think I wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning, and I literally went door to door to find tea farmers and sit down with them. And there are a lot of grandmas and grandpas. They're the first generation of tea farmers. And I just talked with them and tried the tea and tell them what I want to do. And they will give me different options. So I think I met over 50 tea farmers in just 2 weeks, and I literally got tea drunk, because there's a concept I didn't know before. If you drink too much tea, you actually get tea drunk and you feel dizzy. And so finally I decided to go with 2 of the tea farmers. They're also my generation, and they're in their early 20s. They're the 3rd generation of tea farmers, and the tea farms were passed on by their grandparents. So I think this is really fascinating opportunity because I'm actually helping them to bring the tea to the US, and we are both millennials and we're selling our product to millennials. So it's like perfect.
It sounds like a great partnership.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like my family. They're like my little brothers. So it was just that connection that you build with them and people you're partnered with. It's just like a trust. So sometimes if I don't go to Taiwan, they can take care of everything for me. So that was like the best part of my journey is the people you meet.
Where can we find your products today, and what's your vision for the future?
So right now we are focusing on e-commerce, and you can also find our product in Steven Allen's store, and we're partnering up with him, selling our tea at his store in Tribeca and also online. And we have a pop-up coming up in 1 month. Initially, I want to open a tea shop. So I want to build the blue bottle version, but for tea. So I want people to enjoy the tea, like the quality tea on the go. And my first, initial thought was to open one in Williamsburg. And, I'm working on that. So hopefully like early next year, that will come true. Yeah. But eventually, I feel like this brand is representing like Asian culture, and I want other people to know that, like, you know, as a Chinese, immigrants, and you can also build a quality brand, because even 10 years ago, even nowadays, people sort of associate with the brand image, with China is like, it's not perfect, because when people think about made in China, they initially just thought it's like bad quality. And I think it's not fair. And also I think that in my generation, that's my responsibility to change that image, because we have the money now and we understand the concept. We choose quality over quantity. And that's my core value, that I will never choose like low quality tea to serve other people. Even I have better margins, but that's not what I want to do. So I really want to change that image.
In the life of your young company, do you find that changing that perception, is that difficult?
When people taste the tea, like I got a lot of, so I do a lot of events. I like, you know, different, pop-up events, or like WeWork, Uber Eats. So when you see people drinking your tea, you can see the light on their faces. And I, went to LA because my fulfillment center was in LA. And I think there's like a group of Taiwanese people working there as well. So I gave them the sample, and one of the girl, she actually called me in the afternoon, and she's like, I really love your black tea because it reminds me of home. It's exactly what I tasted back home. And she's from Nantou County. So, you know, things like that. And even, you know, I got a lot of like feedback from, customers on Instagram. They're like, oh, thanks for creating this wonderful brand. And I really love your tea. It's so good. And that's like a fulfillment, you know, like I think people, eventually it's food. And if they really like your product, they know it's good and they will keep coming back. And that's what I want to do, to, you know, provide quality product to people.
Are your initial customers tea drinkers already, or are you also trying to educate people about a problem that they don't know that they even have, which is that they're missing drinking a high quality tea from Taiwan?
Yeah. I think that's, so American culture is a really heavy coffee culture, and people don't know what is Taiwanese tea and what is Asian tea unless they travel to Asia before. So I'm trying to like also educate people and like what is a good Asian tea taste like, and what's the health benefit behind each tea. And, if you try this, like, you know, jasmine or black tea or oolong, it tastes very different. So I think it's about a process that you kind of like, you have to get people interested first, and then you can like kind of like educate them like in a more fun and engaging way. So it's most likely to be accepted, because coffee is like a boost, right? It's like alcohol and it gave you a hit, but tea is more like the long-term investment. So if you look at it differently, I drink coffee sometimes too, but in the afternoon, it gives me like a really heavy headache. So I switched to tea. From personal experience, I think I'm trying to tell people that, like tea is also good for you. Maybe you can give this a try. And when people try it, they will just like love it.
It's less acidic, right?
Yeah.
So it should be easier on your stomach.
Yeah.
Take us through your product line, because I think that it's kind of like there's a tea for different times of the day.
The meaning behind it is the two of us, right? So what we really want to do is to bring the joyful moment to people's life, because initially that's what we do in Asia culture. Like after dinner, we'll gather around and the grandpa will make the tea, we just sip and then just chat. And I feel like the most cheerful memories we have is this small moments that we enjoy with other people, and tea is just the medium that brings people together. So for example, our black tea is called Manhattan Black because it's the most strong and caffeinated tea, so it's best to drink it in the afternoon, kind of like a substitute for coffee. And oolong is more it's called homesick, and it just reminds me of home and when I was in Taiwan. So it's also half oxidized. So it's better to drink it in the late afternoon, 4 or 5, because it's not as strong, but also has caffeine in there, and it's really refreshing. And people like to drink it on the go, between appointments. And Pillow Talk is one of my favorite because it's jasmine tea, and people usually it's we use green tea and scent it with jasmine flower. So you can really smell the jasmine scent. People like to drink it before, going to bed, 2-3 hours earlier, and it just calms your nerves. And if you have a hectic day, it really calm you down, kind of like a form of meditation. And we also have Baozhong, which is called the family tradition, because that's the national Taiwanese tea, and that one is really bitter. So people either love it or hate it, and people drink it at noon after or dinner, after you have a really greasy Chinese food or hot pot, it kind of calms your nerves and warms your stomach. So it's very good for metabolism. So each tea has really good health benefit behind them, but also each tea represents a moment that you can share with significant others, or just people like you and me, me and my mom, and you and your wife. So it's all about community. Yeah.
I love the names. Clearly you have a branding background.
Thank you.
So I like to ask all the Inspired Money guests, how do you define success?
I think success for me is how happy you are. And if you wake up every morning, and do you feel grateful, and do you have a smile on your face that you feel you cherish the day you have, and it's going to be a great day, and also be surrounded by people who inspire you and positive, and also encouraging you to do what you love. And also if you have something that you love to do, I think I don't really associate with money with success. I think once you reach to a certain level, it can buy you comfort. Money can buy you comfort, but it can't buy you happiness. And I learned that in my very, very early stage of life. And so right now, what I really value is just how happy I am every day. And if I feel fulfilled from the inside, and if I do, I feel oh, I'm successful. Yeah.
Well, it's very exciting to see what you're doing with the tea company, and that you're building something that has so much potential. Can you tell the Inspired Money listener where they can find your teas and learn more about you?
Yeah, sure. So they can find the tea shops online at us2tea.com, and you can also check the Instagram. We have an Instagram page called us2tea, and you can just buy it online. And if you order over 30 bucks of tea. You get free shipping. But we also have like different samples that you can try. If you have any questions, you can also like shoot us an email or like message on social media. We're very happy to answer any questions that they may have, because tea is very new, especially Taiwanese tea. So we got tons of questions every day.
Well, thank you, Ranmu. Thank you for sharing with us, and we wish you continued success.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So what was your favorite inspired money moment? Here's a tea quote from an ancient proverb: "The path to heaven passes through a teapot." I really like that one. So my favorite inspired money moment was, don't be afraid to ask for help. This is critical for any of us, whether you're an entrepreneur or not. And Ranmu's mom is a huge inspiration to her and a role model as a business person. It reminds me that success breeds success. Ranmu's mom started a company from nothing. She invested in real estate and stocks. Her success allows her to invest in new startups, and her impact keeps increasing. I love seeing that virtuous cycle. Thanks for joining me on this mission. If you had a different favorite inspired money moment and takeaway, let me know by posting in the private Inspired Money Makers Facebook group at inspiredmoney.fm/Facebook.
The music you're listening to right now and all other music on today's show is by the amazing Jim Kimo West. Have an inspired week and do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens.